Welcome to all those who are interested in reflecting on what lies ahead for India or the road ahead for India. And what is the context? Today is the 9th of June 2024. I am recording this video at 7:25 a.m. Later in the day, towards the evening, Sri Narendra Damodar Modi will assume office as the Prime Minister of India for the third time. Unlike the two occasions prior to this time he is heading a coalition ministry. And in the run-up to the formation of this ministry, in the last 3-4 days in particular, various statements have been made, particularly by the Prime Minister designate, about what he hopes to do, about his vision for India and the governance, so on and so forth. So, and one of the things he has done in this context is a symbolic gesture of kissing the Constitution of India. Now, it was this image that triggered the thoughts included in this video, and I am sharing these thoughts with all of you, but keeping Sri Narendra Modi in mind, assuming that the gesture of kissing the Constitution is a sincere one, unlike the previous gesture in 2014 of kissing the stepping stones to the Parliament building, consequent to which the very culture of parliamentary debate was debased and parliamentary proceedings rendered of virtually no consequence. I hope this time around the symbolic gesture will hold and that the symbol and the meaning will coalesce. And these thoughts, I believe, constructive thoughts, consisting entirely of humble suggestions, are meant to sketch some kind of an outline that the Prime Minister of the country and those around him may do well to heed as thoughts emanating from a common man. The problem with people in power from ancient of days is that they get cut off from the life and the thoughts of the common man. They allow themselves to be encircled by a circle of sycophants, cabals, opportunists and time servers, as a result of which they take to a path which ultimately proves to be the path of their own undoing. A sensible, a wise ruler will always give heed to the words, the thoughts, and the aches, the pains, and the aspirations of the people he is supposed to serve. After all, Sri Narendra Modi loses no occasion, no opportunity in projecting himself as the number one servant of the people of India. And if there is an element of sincerity in it, surely he will heed the contents of this video. Let's get started. As I said, the catalyst for my thoughts in this video is this very symbolic gesture of the Prime Minister designate kissing the Constitution of India. Arguably one of the greatest documents ever created in the history of humankind. One of the most complex and competent instruments of governance and the sketching of the vision for a people as to what India should be. And I'm going to keep only the preamble of the Constitution and not all the provisions in the Constitution as the guiding light of the thoughts that I'm going to share with you. Just the preamble of the Constitution. And in the interest of brevity and clarity, let me say this right at the outset, that the preamble of the Constitution identifies 4 foundational values that must govern the affairs of this country. And they are easily remembered: justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. The easy way to remember this is, if you remember the French Revolution, which gave us this immortal slogan, liberty, equality, fraternity, you add one more ideal and keep that as a number 1. And there is a reason why the framers of the architects of the Indian Constitution identified justice as the number 1 ideal for nation building in India. So if you keep justice at the top and then remember the French Revolution, you can remember the four ideals that constitute the architecture of the idealistic vision of the Indian Constitution: justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. So that's actually the matrix of our thought. And fixing this would promote clarity and focus in our thinking. That's the reason why I'm stating it as briefly and succinctly as I can. Now, what should the Prime Minister's outlook be? What should be the outlook of the coalition ministry be, which comes into effect from today? Later in the evening, the Prime Minister designate and his colleagues will be sworn in. We have no idea about the exact details of the event, of the ceremony planned in Rashtrapati Bhavan. What should be the major points of departure? After all, it's very obvious that the verdict of elections 2024 indicates a major craving for change expressed by the people of India. So, what exactly therefore should be the change that the Prime Minister and his able colleagues aim at? Now here, I have to say right at the outset that we should not misinterpret the significance of the outcome. Unfortunately, there are tendencies to do so. Each person tries to interpret an event or an outcome to suit his own or her interest. In the process, truth becomes a casualty, and when the truth of an event is renounced, the very event is mocked, and the benefit it could have brought into our life is rejected. I hope that doesn't happen. For example, attempts are being made to project the outcome of 2024 elections as a blow on the face of BJP and Sangh Parivar. It is not. BJP has not suffered any dent. It has not suffered any loss in popularity. 2024 election results are a slap on the face of Sri Narendra Modi. Whether he likes it or not, that's what it is. So it is his ambition of Char Sau Par that has been rejected lock, stock and barrel by the people. But the real support base of the BJP has, if anything, marginally improved. So it is never a rejection of Sangh Parivar ideology or BJP as a party. And the India coalition in particular must be very clear on this issue if they have to make any progress. So that as a preface, now let me go into the nitty-gritty of what I want to think with you. What is a change that I envisage as fundamental to the future of India? If the present ministry, or the ministry that is going to assume office today itself, is to really make any worthwhile contributions to the life of India, the building of a wonderful nation, if it is to measure up to the aspirations of the resurgent India, then these are the 4 or 5 major points of change that they need to keep in mind. And mind you, I repeat, I am undertaking this reflection strictly within the framework of the preamble to the Indian Constitution and the 4 ideals that are stated right at the outset as the guiding principles for the kind of India of our dreams envisioned and embedded in the Constitution of India. First of all, I would argue that there needs to be a shift from obsession with VVIP security to doing justice to the people. Now you might wonder, what is the connection between VVIP security and denial of justice to the people? If you think for a moment, you will get the connection right away. Don't you think that it is strange, it's anomalous that these great leaders have to be protected at such a massive and prohibitive expense to the national exchequer from the very people among whom they are supposed to be so deliriously popular? Don't you think that is a contradiction? And why in the world is such outlandish security needed? It's needed only for one reason: For all that is said about the popularity of this leader or that leader, this government or that government, this party or that party, the fact of the matter is that there's a great deal of resentment against them. And if you really look into the reason for the resentment, actually nobody gets upset or nobody harbors resentment towards a person or a party because of inefficiency. The people may be contemptuous of them. People may reject them, but they will never become vindictive towards them. Vindictiveness or the desire for revenge is provoked only by one thing: gross injustice. So there is a positive correlation between increasing levels of hyperbolic VVIP security and the injustice that is practiced in the name of good governance. Please mind this: injustice under the auspices of good governance. Now let me give you an illustration. This morning, a few minutes ago, Shri Narendra Modi went to Rajghat to pay his respects to Mahatma Gandhi. When I saw that spectacle, two thoughts came to my mind. First of all, how could Shri Narendra Modi go and publicly display his respect for the Mahatma, who said that Hindus and Muslims are like the two eyes of Mother India? After his having said whatever he has said in the course of the elections, there's absolutely no connection between the two, be that as it may. The second point that I want to draw your attention to is that in Rajghat itself, a certain number of people are gathered and they are deposited to one side. Narendra Modi is seen walking towards the Samadhi, and the people are all made to sit on the ground to one side so the Prime Minister can wave at them. Because without the people being there at a safe distance from the leader, the picture is not visually satisfactory. So the picture must have three things. One, there is the Gandhi Samadhi where a flame, an eternal flame, can be seen. Secondly, at a distance from that, to one side of the frame of the camera, there is a collection of people, very carefully chosen people, and they are cordoned off. They are not allowed to move. They have to sit frozen. And here is the leader walking towards the Samadhi. Three factors. Now, if you look at the picture, it's a picture of alienation. Can you imagine Mahatma Gandhi walking in this manner, keeping people at a safe distance from him, protecting himself from any possible expression of resentment, protest or anger, and that too from among the people so carefully chosen, people known to be his admirers, devotees, people who think that Sri Narendra Modi is God himself. Even in such a context, there is distrust, there is anxiety, there is alienation. Now, the reason for this, that is, Sri Narendra Modi goes to visit Rashtrapita Mahatma Gandhi in a context of heightened security. Gandhi was one who never wanted security. He never needed security. He could go to places of communal rights and quell the riots by his spiritual authority. In contrast, communal riots have been raging in Manipur for more than a year now. Modi has not had the inclination or the sense of responsibility, maybe even the courage to go there. When Rahul Gandhi wanted to visit Manipur, which was burning, every attempt was made to thwart his visit on various pretexts, whatever they be. So I think the very first need, the very first change that needs to be effected is a shift from hyperbolic or exaggerated VVIP security to doing justice to the people. Because if a leader is sure that he is doing justice to the people, he would never want to be protected from them. It's as simple as that. It should not need any further explanation. So there is a direct contradiction between obsessive VVIP security and good governance. You go to the countries in Northern Europe, the Nordic countries. You will see prime ministers walking the streets without any protection. Well, even in the UK, when Johnson was the prime minister, he was seen riding his bicycle going to the market. Can the Prime Minister of India dare to do that? Why not? If you are sure about the good governance you are meting out to the people of India, why fear them? So as long as justice is not being done to the people, there will be this heavy and outlandish dependence on excessive security, hard-kill security. And conversely, the more justice is done, the less the need for security and protection for the leader. That's the first point I want to make. So, reorient the country from VVIP security to justice to the people. Shift the focus from leaders to the people. After that's democracy, government of the people, by the people, for the people, not government of the VIPs, by the VIPs, for the VIPs. It's a democratic aberration what's happening today. That's the first point I want to make. The second point is, have a hard look at this developmental nonsense. Development. The question to ask is, development for whom? Who is being developed? Who is becoming richer? Who is reaping the fruits of development? The people of India or a handful of people? The minions. Those who know how to milk and massage systems of power. As the late Sri V.R. Krishna Iyer, retired judge of the Supreme Court, in a very eloquent article published in the Hindu, wrote about 5 years ago, if I remember right. He says, for the sake of a few billionaires, 1 billion people are being betrayed. That's what he wrote. For the sake of a few billionaires, 1 billion people are being betrayed. This needs to be resisted. This needs to be denounced. The whole process has to be reversed. Development must be understood now not in terms of GDP, not in terms of the massive wealth generated and the number of billionaires produced day after day. It must be measured, it must be calibrated on the scale of the empowerment of the people. And what are the ingredients of the empowerment of the people needs to be discussed, and if I go into that, time will get out of control. Very briefly, I can mention this. That the last priorities of the 2 Modi governments we have seen so far, the last and the least priorities were education and health, whereas they should be the top priorities for any culture of governance which is people-oriented. That's just a hint. A great deal more needs to be said about it. Now, empowerment would also put the emphasis, empowerment of the people, would also put the emphasis on equality. Why is it that the Modi brand of development is aggravating economic, social, cultural and political inequalities in India? What has happened in the last 10 years is the development of inequalities. So the focus must shift from the development of inequalities to the development of the people or the empowerment of the people. By empowering the people, we mean creating conditions conducive to bringing out the best in them, empowering them so that they can serve the society and the country and make the best contributions they can to the welfare of the people and to nation building. As of now, a vast majority of the people are frozen in time. They're alienated from this process of nation building. They are denied education, they are denied health, denied opportunities, and the vast potential of India. As Gandhi said, India is in her 600,000 villages. It's very true. And look at the significant finding of the survey of election results. Just concluded election. Modi has faced maximum rejection from rural India. Why? Because they have been criminally neglected. Lip service is paid to the poor, the villagers, rural people, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. Everybody is out to serve the poor. Everybody is the poor man's chowkidar. But the poor man's plight is becoming more and more miserable. This hypocrisy must end. India must situate herself on the foundation of equality. And as B.R. Ambedkar said in 1953 in an interview with BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, the future of democracy in India is bleak because India is a society of gross inequalities, irremediable inequalities. In fact, today it has become aggravating inequalities. You cannot flaunt good governance and become a catalytic agent for aggravating inequalities among the people. It's high time they call the bluff of all this nonsense. So in the days ahead, there must be a shift from development in terms of GDP, development in terms of the number of billionaires India can flaunt, to the development of the people. Or as I put this a short while ago, the development of inequalities to the development of a culture of equality and the empowerment of the people. I hope that is clear. So far I've dealt with two major changes required. One is shift from excessive VVIP security to doing justice to the people. VVIP versus the people. That pattern is very clear in this election. That's why I'm saying this. The second point I have made is shift from development understood in terms of numbers, especially the numbers of billionaires that we produce, GDP numbers, so on and so forth, to quality of life for the common man, the empowerment of the common man, enabling him to stand on his feet with dignity and serve the country. We are a long way away from that. And unless and until we move in that direction, India will not be respected in the Committee of Nations, in the global village. Now here I have to mention something very interesting. Great attempts have been made in the last, say, several years, 3-4 years in particular, to project India as a Vishwaguru, but in effect, de facto, Sri Narendra Modi as the Vishwaguru. And we are told day in and day out by some important looking people who are very pleased with their own wisdom and their control, their magic hypnotizing power over others, that Modi has become the greatest, most respected, most popular leader in the world. What has happened at home? People have rejected him. People have rejected Modi. No matter what BJP camp followers say, the message is very clear. As I said, people have not rejected BJP. This is what BJP as a party should know and rejoice about. They have rejected Modi, his style of functioning, particularly his very cruel, heartless, dictatorial style of functioning, the bristles with intolerance, brutal, murderous intolerance towards the opposition parties. People have rejected that lock, stock and barrel. So now the third major reorientation that I advocate. Reorient the national outlook from control to freedom. The Modi magic, if you really analyze the Modi magic, it's nothing but the pathological magic of control. Obsessive, complete, suffocating, neurotic control. Everything must be controlled. Everything must be brought in alignment with the will of one man. Now, that is seriously disruptive of the potentiality of a nation. It is good enough only to promote a culture of sycophancy. It will suppress the genius of a nation. It will fill a society with fear, and where there is fear, creativity, initiative, all the good things that contribute to genuine human progress will all wilt and wither away. This obsessive control, or the psychological craving to control every detail of a nation's life, a nation as wide and varied as we are, denotes a pathological, unhealthy idea and practice of authority. Now, I wish I had the time here to tell you something more about the concept of authority. Maybe I'll deal with authority in a separate video, because it's a subject that needs and demands a separate treatment in itself. But here it suffices to say that genuine authority is quite the opposite of this obsessive control orientation. Gandhi never tried to control everyone. Gandhi had no need to control anyone. Now you would say, well, then what about the running quarrel between Gandhi and Ambedkar? That's just a context to itself. Even so, Gandhi never tried. Gandhi never sent gundas to slap Ambedkar on the face. He respected Ambedkar's views, and he insisted on having a meeting with him. He tried to understand what Ambedkar was trying to say, which is quite different from what's happening today. If you say anything which is disliked by somebody in power, or somebody who thinks that he is close to somebody in power who is in close proximity to somebody else in power, then you will be slapped on your face. So, this control orientation is psychologically sick. And this control orientation is certainly inimical to individual freedom, personal liberty. Why does the Constitution, the preamble to the Indian Constitution, affirm freedom? Without freedom, a people cannot develop. And if people don't develop, a nation cannot progress. So the pathological control orientation of one leader is actually stifling the soul of a nation. You cannot progress in the genuine sense of the term. You cannot fulfill the destiny of a nation by pandering to the neurotic control orientation of one man, no matter how great that person is. So, when control orientation takes a stranglehold on the people of a nation, what happens? The person who thus exercises absolute and tyrannical control of the people gets progressively distanced or alienated from the reality of the people, reality in the life of the people. He becomes ignorant. You know, in olden days when kings and monarchs ruled, we have some beautiful stories of kings roaming around incognito, that is, dressed like a common man so that nobody would recognize his identity. Why did the kings who believed in good governance in the past do so? Because they wanted a first-hand understanding of the reality in the life of the people. That is a sign of loving the people. But today we have a situation in which a man who claims to be in total love of the people progressively distances himself from the people and tries to control every aspect of their life. Now, this cannot happen. This is a monstrous contradiction in terms. So, there is a need, an urgent need to shift from this control orientation to affirming the freedom of the people in consonance with what the Constitution of India provides. Today, personal liberties, or in the recent past, personal liberties have been seriously compromised. And the evident sign of that is the pall of fear that covers the face of India. There's a reality of fear everywhere. And who uses fear? Fear is a weapon in the hands of control freaks. And those who use fear as their shield or their sword are enemies of the freedom of the people. These are all, elementary class lessons. I can't understand why people have difficulty in understanding these things. So, we have dealt with three major reorientations required very quickly. Reorient the country from obsessive, outlandish VVIP security to doing justice to the people. Justice is the first fundamental value stated in the preamble to the Constitution, right? Secondly, re-understand, reappropriate the vision of development, not as development of inequalities, but development of the empowerment of the people, development of the people, and taking them towards higher and higher levels of equality, particularly equality of opportunity. The third reorientation that I suggest is break this shackles of the control orientation that's been so monstrously imposed, inflicted on the people, and instead grant freedom to the people. Set the people free. Remove this oppressive miasma of fear and apprehension from the people. Let people breathe the air of freedom. There's no harm in it. And anyone who thinks that the freedom of the people is harmful to him can never do any good to the people. Absolutely not. So this is a core problem that the coalition members of the new government have to be always mindful of. The fourth reorientation that I advocate is the reorientation from event management to reckoning realities. As I said in one of my earlier videos, is that all right-wing parties throughout the world, doesn't matter which country, whether it is America or South America or India or any Putin's Russia, wherever, right-wing dictators are in power, or right-wing parties or ideologies are in power, their number one priority is event management, because they believe that by managing events, by celebrating everything, they can create a hypnotic ambience, environment, in which a whole people can be kept anesthetized, insensitive to the realities of their own predicament. The results of 2024 elections have proved that this cannot happen, it cannot go on like this. So there is an urgent need to shift from the mindset of event management to reckoning the realities. The reality of this country is that there is massive unrest. There is terrible disenchantment, unemployment, cost of living, poverty, destitution, poor facilities for education, health, alienation of the people, anxiety about the future, the feeling of being cheated in regard to the promises made in the past, so on and so forth, the endless list. Now that cannot be glossed over with a series of highly glamorous events managed very effectively, at which the BJP and the Jing Bang lot are very good. This will not work anymore. A very clear message in the results of 2024 election is that this event management political culture of hypnotic management of the people will not work. The days are over. Reality has broken out of its cabinet. The cat's jumped quite out of the bag. So, and finally, or maybe one or two things more, maybe just one more. There's an urgent need to shift from divisive politics to the politics of fraternity. Unfortunately, the Sangh Parivar ideology is an ideology of divisiveness. It is us versus them. Without the hated other, this ideology cannot stand on its feet. It's like an empty sack which can stand upright only if it is filled with the sand of negativity. Now this will not do. It may have worked for a period of time, but now it's very clear that this negative mindset, this negative ideology cannot deliver anymore. People have had enough of it, they're sick and tired of it. So the more the Prime Minister banks on this, the more people will reject him. Instead, people are actually longing for fraternity. No matter what you do about playing the Hindu-Muslim card, the fact of the matter is that in a vast majority of areas, Hindus and Muslims even today live in amity. Because at the end of the day, we are human beings. We are not born Hindu, we are not born Muslim, we are not born Christian. We are born infants. And anyone who has any common sense will know that infant, a baby, is a universal category. A baby has no label. A baby is not even male or female. That's a prejudice we inflict on the babe. So, the idea of alienation based on religion is superimposed on the innocence of the babe by people who want to corrupt others in order to capitalize on their degradation. But that deep layer of the craving for amity, brotherhood, living in harmony and peace with all, loving and being loved remains intact. No politician has the authority to penetrate the deepest levels of a person's mind and uproot that craving for love and craving to love from the minds of people. End of the day, we are human beings, and the most fundamental need we have is a need to love and to be loved. And I would say that even bread is secondary to that. So if a political ideology thinks that it can capture power and preserve power till thy kingdom come, using politics of hate and divisiveness, it is seriously mistaken. And the time has come to change all this. So these are the 4 or 5 reorientations that I advocate. If the ministry that's going to assume office today is to deliver people's welfare, if they are to contribute to the future of India at all, rather than to the paralysis and the anarchy of India, the blighting the soul of India, then these reorientations that I very quickly and briefly presented to you need to be kept in mind unwaveringly. This is the bottom line. If these things are not adhered to, I'm sorry to say the future is bleak. Please think about it. Thank you.